Human Rights and Intellectuals Virtual Conference. Okay, so I will start this global conference on global journalists, human rights defenders, and intellectuals all over the world. So the theme of today's event, today's conference, is Global Journalist Leadership in the Time of COVID-19 Crisis and Future Impacts. That will be asked on that topic to only the journalists that who are in this forum. The second one, global effects and implication on post-COVID-19 development, economy, and diplomacy. That will be asked to our intellectuals, researchers who are in this forum. And the last one, human rights issues faced in the time of COVID-19. So these are the three topics we are going to discuss, debate, and share our opinions, views, and experiences. So now, I would start with the introduction. We have Chairperson of Girija Prasad Koirala Foundation, Kathmandu, Nepal, former Deputy Prime Minister of Nepal, and former Foreign Minister of Nepal, Honorable Sujata Koirala. Let us welcome her in this forum.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next, I go as per the confirmation email I got, first come, first serve basis. So first confirm and followed by the rest. Bharati Silwal Giri, who started her career as a radio journalist in 1976 in Nepal and founder of English monthly magazine Media Nepal and an advocate of gender equality all over the world. Welcome her. Next, Dilbhushan Pathak, a TV journalist, founder of Interface Nepal, Media for Arts and Rights. And he's not here yet, so he said he'll sneak in anytime in between. Next, we have Bose Bahadur Balaya, journalist and PhD student. Next, we have Farduz Askar, first woman to head a major radio station in the Middle East. Farduz Askar. So she's not in yet. Next, we have Vincent Lin, international journalist and columnist. Vincent Lin. Next, we have Andrea Wen, international journalist from Spain. Next, Dr. Leon Ng, editor-in-chief, Wall Street News Agency. Next, Marivir Montebon, journalist and executive editor of OASM, a media fellow for reporting of COVID-19, MSU, New Jersey. Next, Ang Chering Sherpa, first Nepali journalist to climb Mount Everest. I don't see him yet. Kaushik Ahmad, editor at the Weekly Bengali. Professor Indrajit S. Saluja, chief editor, the Indian Panorama. Prabjot Singh, executive editor, PTC TV, India. Anuj Thapa, journalist from The Street.
Thank you so much for having me.
Lara Gregory, attorney and counselor at law.
Thank you for having me.
Good
morning, everyone.
ASQ, ESQ, and attorney at law, incoming president of the Queens County Women's Bar Association. And she had more other designations, so it's kind of long. She's gonna explain it later. She will talk about it.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Victoria Pilotti, President of Center for the Women of New York. Teresa Naciel from Brazil, the founder of the Portuguese Language Society at the UN. Professor Bizan Pant, PhD, as advisor Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative, Secretariat at MPPN at Oxford University, United Kingdom. And last one, Mobiz Siddiqui, journalist from Dunia News. I welcome you and thank you for your valuable time in joining this World Forum. To begin with, I would like to invite Honorable Sujata Koirala, Chairperson of GPK Foundation, and former Deputy Prime Minister and former Foreign Minister of Nepal for her welcome remarks. And I would like everyone to mute your microphone, please.
Zoom meeting during the pandemic caused by COVID-19, which has confined the humanity to indoors. I would like to thank you all for joining this meeting despite being located at different time zones and places. As we all know, coronavirus crisis has changed everything and devastated our normal life. This is, of course, a challenge to all of us, also an opportunity to start anew. Journalists have a great responsibility during this pandemic, whether pandemic or disaster or normal times. Journalists have been eyes, ears, and voices of peoples. Journalists reach there where even states have no access and bring out the stories for actions. Journalists deserve our salutations and commendation. I want to thank you all for coming, and especially thanks to Somnathji for inviting all of us and organizing this program. So let's start the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Sujata Koirala, for your welcome remarks. So now, next, one of our first panelist to begin with this forum, I love to invite to present her experiences on focusing about journalist issues and even the human rights issues. Bharati Silwal Giri. Unmute, please. Unmute. Cannot hear you. Unmute, please.
Okay, yes, I've
Yes,
done that.
yes, now we can hear you.
Thank you so much, Ji, for inviting me to this important forum and to a discussion that is relevant and contextual. You have asked me to speak on journalism, and I will go by the questions you have given me so that, you know, we're all on the same page. So you asked me what is the crucial point in the challenges of journalism. And what I think is that challenges to journalism are not new. In the context of timeliness, relevance, accuracy of facts and data, and the purpose. Why timeliness of information is important is because stale news or stale coverage will not hold the attention of the public, right? And again, if they are not relevant, they do not offer much value. And likewise, if facts and data are not correct or not accurate, together with the purpose of why they are being provided, it will reflect on the credibility of the media. The other challenge is, of course, that of security of journalists. And as I see, there are many journalists in this panel, whether it is in wartime or peacetime. You know, many journalists have been targeted for presenting facts and information that are not liking to the governments, of the time, as they are seen to upset their rule and face political persecution. For example, take the case of Jamal Khashoggi, who was critical of the Saudi government and who was seen going into the Saudi consulate in 2018, but never seen after that. In Nepal, Birendra Shah was kidnapped and killed in 2007 by the Maoists as they exposed their illegal logging deals. Uma Singh, who wrote against the caste system, the dowry system, and berated the Maoists for not returning the land seized by them, was murdered in 2009, becoming the first woman journalist to be killed in Nepal. Well, the list of guardians of the truth is long, as governments and wrongdoers see journalists as threats for exposing the inequities. On the reverse side, the other challenge is the ethical journalism. The brashness and aggressiveness of journalists themselves, even becoming nationalistic, who take center stage during panel discussions by foisting or rather shouting down their views and opinions on the panelists with total disregard to the dignity of the panelists, pardon me, demonstrating disrespect and abusive behavior. Now, this brand of journalism is so much prevalent in India. In fact, Al Jazeera has even produced on a piece on this entitled Brash and Bigoted, How Arnab Goswami Changed India's TV Debate. So just if you want to look at it, go to Al Jazeera and you will understand what I mean. Now, today for us, the main challenge is COVID-19. Balanced news and reporting must ensure not to create panic and fear, which we have seen in people rushing to the markets to stockpile food and other materials in anticipation of shortages. Governments are using COVID-19 as an opportunity to delve more in corruption, non-transparency in decision-making, realizing their dreams of annexation, and deliberately engaging in disinformation or fake news. Therein lies the challenge of journalism and for journalism. Now, how do we know about fake news and how do we stop it? Well, fake news, hoax news, misinformation, disinformation, or propaganda, however one likes to call it, is motivated by profit, whether it be for political mileage or money. Such propaganda is easy to identify because they have a slant presented through personal comments or opinions in the hope of influencing the public for the originator of the fake news. In this day and age of IT, I don't think it is completely possible to stop fake news, especially on the social media, as people feel the urge to quickly share it when it is, especially when it is bordering on sensationalism. Very often, governments and leaders use fake news as an excuse to discount their utterances when the reaction becomes too heated or to trounce their opposition in the hope of gaining mileage with their electorates. Now, as you all know, the term fake news has been popularized by Donald Trump, who uses it unabashedly to discredit his rivals or to humiliate journalists and media houses, little knowing that it discredits his own standing in the world stage by deflecting blame on WHO and then on China for the spread of coronavirus in order to cover his own ineptness in handling the pandemic. Having said that, media education gains currency on imparting knowledge and information to the viewers, listeners, and readers on how to spot fake news in the first place. Now, this would help the public to become more discerning in fact-checking, verifying the source of the news, authenticating the creator's credibility, and affirming whether it is paid or sponsored, and understanding the content of the message it is trying to communicate. This becomes all the more important as factual news and information on coronavirus can be a lifesaver. Should I go on, Somoji? Because now you've asked me to talk about Nepal. Should I
Yeah,
go
just
on?
like a minute more on Nepal. Yeah.
Only a minute more.
Yes, so then we come back.
Okay. You know now, the history of print journalism in Nepal dates back to the Rana period, with
Right.
the introduction of the hand press in 1851. Radio was established in 1957, and television came much later in 1985. And like radio is state-owned, television is also state-owned. But now many the private sector has entered, like FM stations, community radios are also making forays into the media scene. Now, the main purpose of the state-owned media was and has functioned as an indispensable tool of the regime to keep it in power by deliberately disseminating disinformation, as opposed to functioning as the fourth estate. I recall my days at Radio Nepal when I was the English news anchor. And of course, the news would start with the headline of the monarch, who was absolute. It would start about his fabulous leadership, about his vision, and how there was peace, progress, and prosperity in Nepal, whereas elsewhere there was war, famine, poverty. So one day I asked my boss, "Sir, why in Nepal there is peace, progress, and poverty, and prosperity, and elsewhere there is war, hunger, and poverty?" Now, upon hearing this, one of my colleagues remarked, male colleague remarked, "Bharati, my dear, even if there is a fly stuck on the newsprint, read it exactly as it is." Now that was my political awakening. Now Nepal has become a republic. Nevertheless, the trends and patterns of using the media by the rulers and political parties have not changed. It is said that the media is the mirror of the society by giving the voice to the voiceless, and thus acting as a bridge between the government and the public. But what is happening here is the sharp polarization of ideologies driven by political parties, which is quite evident in the slant portrayed in the news and stories by the media. This is not to say, of course, that some media houses are making efforts to bring real news and human interest stories to the readers and listeners, but these are far and few. Okay, so Muji.
Thank you. So we'll get back to you again. There will be some Q&A sessions. So next, I'll go to our neighboring country, India, to present your view on global journalist leadership in the time of COVID-19 crisis and its future impact. I'm inviting Prabjot Singh, editor of PTC TV India. Welcome.
Yeah, so good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time zone you are in. I was listening to Ms. Bharti. You see, the problem with the media anywhere for any such like situations we have faced in Punjab, for example, terrorism. And now we are facing sort of another terrorism. This is virus terrorism. And people are so scared. I've never seen in my lifetime people so scared. And we call ourselves, we are human beings and we are the best thing to happen in the living kingdom. But see how scared and how fearful we are today. And a small thing, very, very small thing, which even you can't see with a microscope. Writing a molecule of protein has scared us so much that we claim ourselves to be the nuclear powers, biological powers, and still we are clueless. And when we talk to people, we spread a message. Oh, so many cases, so many cases, so many positive. We're just trying to scare the people. We are trying to shatter their moral confidence. We are trying to shatter their faith in themselves. Okay, they can fight it out. Stay indoors. Do this. Wash your hands. Everybody's doing washing hands and everything. Keep your face covered with a mask. Why? It's not an airborne virus. It's a droplet. It can drop and it can impact an immediate area, but not the entire atmosphere around you. But still, without getting into these things, what I'm saying is that media is doing what the authorities are telling us to do it. They are giving us a number every morning. So many people were tested, so many have tested positive, so many have gone home, so many have died. And this is the score sheet today. World over, this is a score sheet. America, so many people tested, so many died, this is the score. What is this? Is it the way to handle a pandemic like Corona? Is it the way you want people to cooperate and fight a pandemic by staying indoors without doing anything and just following what you are told? No way, unless you build confidence in the people and tell them, yes, this is a disease which has come. And I've seen when AIDS came, you remember about 30 years ago when AIDS came, it was again a virus disease. It's still there. And it has claimed much more lives than Corona would ever claim. 36 million people have died of AIDS in the world so far. And when we were youngsters, I used to travel a lot as a journalist, and we used to carry paper sheets to spread it on commodes before we went to a toilet. We were so scared. We were not touching people. That time, that scare was there. But AIDS is still there. But those fears have gone. Why we create some sort of scare, and media is not trying to help people. Media is adding to the problem of people by spreading messages which is given because we are serving somebody, some mafia, some lobby's interest. Somebody wants to sell medicine. Somebody wants to sell vaccines. They make vaccines. They want to sell. They want to make money. But human beings have been believing, for example, we have banned, don't go to places of worship. Why? They say it can spread. I can tell you, though I'm not a religious man, I can tell you in India or Nepal, you have people going to Ganges, that Ganga River, they take a dip and they get cured. And never in the history, when thousands and hundreds and thousands of people go there for a dip, any epidemic has taken place. We have Golden Temple in Amritsar. People go there in thousands, not a single instance when it served as a source center for a pandemic or an epidemic or any disease. Because faith is one thing which is helps you to fight any sort of foreign invasion in your body. If you trust a medicine, for example, any medicine, if you have a headache, you have 10 tablets available, same analgesic salt. But one salt suits you, and the moment you take that salt, that particular brand, okay, Analgin or Aspro, it will cure you. If you take others, which are same salt, but it won't help you, cure you, because you have faith in that particular brand. Same is the case with human psychology. When you go to a place of worship, you have faith, I'll get cured. People in distress go to places of worship and they get cured. Not only that, it also, when you concentrate, it builds your immunity system. But we never took anybody in confidence. We were just giving out as if you are living, whether you are in US, whether you are in India, you are in Nepal, you are in France, same thing, same protocol everywhere. Lockdown lifted in France, next day lockdown lifted in India. Certain relaxations announced in India, certain relaxations announced in US. Same, follow. Malls are closed in India. Places of worship are closed all over the world. They are closed in India, in Nepal, everywhere. Is it a pattern? Is it some part of a design? I wonder why journalists are not investigating, why they are not coming out with stories which can actually educate people. Is this virus so serious? It's claiming only 2% lives. And we have other things taking much more lives every day. In road accidents, for example, in Punjab, 18 people die every day. And in Corona, in 60 days, we have lost only 47 people. But see the scare of Corona in Punjab, or see the scare of Corona in India, or see the scare of Corona world over. People have forgotten about other serious ailments. We have cancer, so much of cancer in India. Now nobody is bothered. What's happening to cancer? What's happening to other diseases? There's no place. Everywhere, everything is so designed, so planned. It's only Corona, Corona, and Corona. Economies are shattered. Human life is shattered. We humans are basically social animals. We have to live together. And now we are told, no, don't mix with people. Keep social distance. Why? If your system is, I have been to many slum areas in recent days. People are poor, but their immune system is so strong. And believe me, incidence of Corona is minimal in those slum areas where people even don't have enough clothes to cover their bodies.
Okay, Prabhuji, just within a minute, wrap up, please. Then we come back again.
Okay, so my thing is, media has failed people. Media has not built people's confidence, but media has been trying to scare people with figures, very alarming figures, day in and day out, without promising anything. Say, oh, vaccine is being worked out, this. But they have not gone to hospitals. They have not seen how people are being treated there. They just put on the bed, they lie down there, and that's it. And we are creating so many people, and we are not taking out the people who have come back home. We are saying 22 million people have tested positive for Corona, but out of 200,000, 100,000 have already come back home. So there are only 100,000 people.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhuji.
So that's why I think we should be objective and fair to the people, educative, informative, and play our role. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prabjot Singh, Executive Director of PTC TB. He's from India right now. So we'll come back to you with some questions in the Q&A session. Now, I would love to invite Mobid Asad Siddiqui, a journalist from Pakistani media, and he is in Dunia News.
Yeah, thank you. I will introduce myself again. My name is Mobid Siddiqui, and
Mobid, can you please put your video on?
Okay, yes. My name is Mobid Siddiqui, and as you introduced me as a Dunia TV. Basically, I'm bureau chief of Dunia TV in New York, and is an Urdu TV channel. So I will share my experience and also about maybe I will. I don't know where to start because it's a long story. I myself also I
just
consider
focus
myself
on the crisis, the time of COVID-19.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. No, I understand, but this is my saying.
Right.
Actually, when the pandemic started, in the beginning, I have the same views like my previous guests have their views. So, and I do talk the same thing what he was talking. And as he says, he's a religious person, not a religious person, but I'm a religious person. I have strong beliefs, right? So when this pandemic started, and I have two responsibilities because I live in America. So my audience is not American, not common American, not English speaking. My audience is Pakistani, and in Pakistan also, my TV channel was in Pakistan. It's the second largest TV in Pakistan. So, and when I started this one in the beginning, I was thinking I will educate my people in the United States. So because, people watch in big number also in whole United States.
Right.
So when the first day this happened, I was at the street distributing food and delivering food at the houses. And then I was talking the same thing, but Mr. I forget his name. There is no corona, why we are, making this big thing. But all of the sudden, it's start impact on my own community. So I don't know where, and I saw the video from Pakistan, from India, and they are, showing New York, and they are showing the United States. Oh, there are fake news. They say, oh, this hospital is empty, this hospital is empty. And I was so surprised. You're sitting in the United States, and the people are, the media, what they are covering, they're showing everything. And you take the video, the one person who want to make the conspiracy theory. I totally understand this could be conspiracy theory. Maybe somebody want to make money, whatever. But it's true. It's there. So, I myself volunteer, and, I didn't stay at home. As a journalist, I think I'm like a soldier, and I have to fight because this is my real journalism. I want to do the real journalism. So I myself, I went everywhere. I went to funeral home, I went graveyard, I went to hospital, and the most popular hospital was Elmhurst Hospital. So I went to Elmhurst Hospital, and I see on my own eyes what's going on. And brother says again, there is, and there's a big theory also, and in the United States, people got flu and they die. And I was thinking the same way, I'm telling you. But actually, when I went to funeral home, the first day when the first Pakistani, because I was doing Pakistani, basically my audience is Pakistani, so or Muslim, and I went to first day when the first Pakistani died. I had interview of the funeral home guy, and he says it's a COVID-19 and whatever and this and that. So, and he says, maybe more will come. And you know what, next day, after 15 days, he even not receiving my call, because why? He was so busy. I'm seeing my own friends. You know how many people in my community passed away because of the COVID? 500. And it's a small community. This brother, he's my friend also in the funeral guy. He monthly, he do like 15 to 20 funeral a month. And you know how much he does? And he was New York Times covered him. And I did a story before the New York Times, but because my channel is not that popular, so it was not anywhere. So only 1.5 months, he did 300 bodies. So where's my job is to start? Because of the brother who's making this one as a conspiracy theory, then I have to tell the truth. Please, we are not doctor. How can he say we are, okay, if you are investigating, go and investigate. We have to listen to the doctor. My brother is doctor. My cousin is doctor. How they can lie to us? My friends are doctor. How they can lie to us? Either the conspiracy theory, I can, in Pakistan, I told everyone, okay, is this conspiracy theory? I totally understand. But now it's there. Maybe Bill Gates make it. Maybe Israel make it. Because in Pakistan, everything becomes Israelis. So maybe Yahud make it. But the thing is there. Now what we have to do. So I started, I was the first day, I went everywhere. Even I was distributing food. I was delivering the food. I was wearing the mask, and I got corona. I got the corona, and I stay home. And 1 week I was so weak. All the illness, shortness of breath. I went to hospital. They say you have a corona, but we can, because it's not that bad, because your situation is not that bad, so we can have it. And thank God they didn't take me in the hospital. I came, and while I was sitting in my room, the same room I'm sitting, I did research. I make my personal videos for Pakistani people. Please take this seriously. And I also one thing, and maybe it's not important for you guys, but I will. And how the social working and the media can help. as a Muslim, it's very important to wash the bodies, deceased bodies. So, and nobody is washing the bodies because they got fatwa. Fatwa means like they can get the advice from the religious leader. So you don't have to wash the body. It's not dangerous. So I went to mayor meeting. The mayor meeting, and I see the guidelines of the CDC, and CDC say you can wash the body. There's no harm. And the mayor, when I called the mayor office says, okay, we don't have any objection. So at that time in New York, nobody's washing the body, and they are treating their disease as they are something. The kids, they are not attending the janaza. Nobody, even sometimes they have to. I will also, if I have time, I will share my personal story also with one lady. So, and Alhamdulillah, I went to funeral homes, and I said, listen, I got this from the CDC, I got from this mayor, and now I call some religious leader in Pakistani community, I call the doctors, and they say there is no harm. So I start educated, you can wash the body. And, because of my news, they start washing the body.
Wow.
And yeah, and the people, because this are because the CDC guideline is there. Even I sent this report to Pakistan, and I said, listen, don't treat your disease like this. I see sometime the kids, they're watching their that one's funeral at Zoom. One day I received one sister, when I will take 1 or 2 more minutes, I received a call from one sister, and she said, brother Mavis, my father is about to die. He's in ventilator, he's a corona patient, and I don't have anything, I don't have any money. Can you help me? And then I call my funeral guy, I call my organization, they say, okay, we'll take care. So one day she called me, she said, my father passed away. As a Muslim, usually our female, they don't go to the funeral homes. Okay. So she said, I don't have anyone. I have only my father with me. So I took her and I said, I arranged the funeral. I went, and even I watched the body, because I as a journalist, I want to show the people, I do think first and then talk. So I watched the body. Okay. So I took I took the sister to funeral home, and she saw the body and she was scared.
Wrap it up. So we'll have another panelist. We'll come back to you. Just a minute more.
So thank God. I helped her to take to the funeral home, and then she asked me, I want to go to the graveyard. I took her to the graveyard, and she is calling me every day and praying for me. So last thing, as a media, where is my responsibility? Where our responsibility comes? And then I can agree with this brother, my previous brother. You know what? We have to give the positive news also. Because there is negative news. Because when I was victim of the corona, when I watched the news about people are dying, and I know one of my friend's brother died, and same age as I was, this night was very dangerous for me, because I thought I will die tonight because of the news is what I'm getting. So no news, positive news. So I asked my brother, I want to write the will. So, there's a combination. Please don't make your religious belief or your faith to truth or what journalism. Okay, because if you go Ganga Jamna, you will be okay. If you go Makkah Medina, you will be okay. No, the science is there. All the beliefs increase your immunity. But the thing is also, the last thing in Africa, you see the guy, the church people, they have believed one person, their father, and they drink what's the name of some alcohol, some cleaning thing, and they all 25 died because of his belief. So please don't. I'm a religious person, but I never bring my beliefs or my religion on my journalism.
Thank you for Mabi Asad Siddiqui for your valuable information and your suggestion. Next, I would like to invite Maribir Montevon, Executive Editor of OSM, and she is based in New York, but she is from Philippines community.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Somna. So I'd like to cover the 4 questions that you gave me in 5 minutes, as you said. So
I'll use the 5 minutes only, please.
Yes. So I am operating here in New York City I've been here for 13 years already. And I set up my online magazine. I have an online presence. Since 2008, I founded, not 2012. So 8 years, I founded Awesome Online Magazine, which I co-founded with my daughter, who at that time finished her media technology degree. She passed away in 2019. So I do things in honor for her. So the crucial point right now in challenges of media, right now, the truth and lies are all in the same platform of digital technology. That is the challenge that media practitioners are facing. So personally, I deal with it virtually and in real time, because fake news is as fast as your truthful content is. And the deluge of fake news and trolls are so prevalent these days that there's a need to fact check whatever comes out, especially from sources of power, people who have political positions and they don't speak the truth. We have to be more extra vigilant reporters. And there's also the presence of trolls, which are paid. Trolls bully us journalists when you have a story that's critical and raises critical questions. They bully you. They call you. There is a word such as prostitute, like you are from the press, you are being paid. So that is, you deal with that too. You have to be thick-faced to counter all these harassments that you get from social media. On the good side, however, because the US has two, the landscape of media in the US could be described as two. There's corporate media, which is the big funded media giants, CNN, MSNBC, and all that. And there's also ethnic media, from where I belong. I operate with my main audience as Filipino Americans in the US, and some in Canada, some are in Europe, and some are also in Hong Kong and Asia. So ethnic media has a landscape and has a voice in the US. And we are like 2,000, there are about 2,500 different small institutions, almost like mom and pop stores. And so this is for me a revelation of how democratic the landscape of the US is as far as media is concerned. And so because of that, because of the digital technology, we are able to have our own space and niche to voice out our concerns on immigration, on women's rights, on discrimination, institutional discrimination. We have that voice, and I embrace that, and I take responsibility to give our audience that voice, that truth, because that is the essence of democracy. You're able to express reality and your own concern as a person and as a society, as a community. So that is also the good side of journalism right now. And fake news, we can actually have a whole session for fake news and how to spot them and how to stop them. I have had the privilege of having the training on how to deal with fake news, and it's easy. You have to look at the website, the source of information. If there's funny sounding website like Link Beef, what's that? Link Beef, and or Gummy Post or GossipDiary.com. You already begin to question. You don't just believe the headline, because they will always sensationalize the headline. Like, for example, Trump orders 3 trillion for stimulus benefits. That's wonderful. People don't think they will just send it out. But you have to look at the source, your website, if it doesn't sound funny. And also, like, there are the trolls are very smart at doing this. They write breaking-cnn.com. They use the name of old institutions, of professional institutions, but actually that's a fake site, fake news website. So be wary of the website, and when you read the article, do not share. Read it first. If there is an attribution to the source, if the source is credible, like human rights in the US have, for example, have been grossly violated for 100%. And who says that? Is it from the Department of Human Rights, the Commission on Human Rights? You check the source of information. So these are the things that as readers, consumers of news must look at before sharing. And also, how do you stop it? Personally, you have to block people, even if they're your friends, if they're promoting violence, if they are justifying the president telling lies and still providing an excuse or an apology. Personally, I block them. Do not give them your space. Your space of 3,000 viewers are important. You don't want them to have contaminated information. So I have been blocking my friends actually, so that I don't want to argue. I just block them. So that's the way to, and you can also report like doubtful information. You can send a report to Twitter or to wherever social media you're using or you have seen it. So that's it. And how is the Philippines right now in terms of journalism? I go back to the time when in 1986, we became the freest media in Asia again. We regained that status after the People Power uprising catapulted President Marcos, and media became free again. And this was a result of people's movement. Media being killed, media not being quiet, just pouncing on to the truth. And at that time, Marcos was controlling the press. He declared martial law. It was a blanket order. Everybody was shut down. Right now, there is still challenge to press freedom. President Duterte is targeting specific media because of digital technology. He cannot shut off everyone. So he's targeting those who are critical of his policies. Number one was Inquirer, then Rappler, which is led by Maria Ressa, and recently ABS-CBN. The franchise may not be renewed. So these are all indicators of, abuses of power that don't want to hear the truth. So he wants to stop the press. So what are we doing? We keep saying the truth. You just don't buckle down. You have to put your fear aside and just make your story airtight, cannot be disputed. Your sources of information are have integrity. And finally, what's the future? What's the future of journalism post-COVID? That may not be quite near yet. We are still reeling from COVID pandemic. But right now, I am doing my media fellowship with Montclair State University, and they're providing us the venue to report on, like, reportage on in the absence of vaccine and medication, what are Filipinos doing to heal themselves using traditional wisdom, traditional knowledge. So this is again being surfacing our heritage, our traditions in the midst of this pandemic. And also I would like to see a much better future after this, and media being frontliners for truth. We source our information from the ground. So we interview nurses who have had contracted COVID because of their work, and we interview how people have developed or regained back their health after contracting COVID. And so again, the principles of truth and our allegiance to truth and balanced news will always be there, regardless of technology, regardless of what medium you're using. So I just would like to, and I look forward to partnerships of small ethnic groups, media groups, with universities, because they are a scientific community that we can deal with, and it's a way to counter all these politically motivated trolls that try to diffuse confusion and lies and half truths, which are not helping at all, so that the society can move forward and become better.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
yeah, that's my take. Thank you so much,
So
Somnath.
we will love to work with you as you ask for social communities and ethnic communities and different South Asian communities. We
Yes.
love to work as a partner in partnership in your coordination. So please feel free to reach us, and
Yes,
we will
amazing.
definitely work out together. Thank you. Thank you again for
Looking
your.
forward. Thank you.
Now I would like to go to Spain. Please welcome international journalist Andrea Wen from Spain.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Thanks for inviting me. I want to express my respect to all the brave people who is participating in this conference. You are all admirable, and it's a real privilege to be here. And I believe it's very important to keep present that fear is the worst disease. The responsibility that the media has in spreading fear is huge, because journalists have the power of making fear contagious. In Spain, we have been one of the most affected countries in the world. We are vulnerable because 49% of our population is actually old people. And although to date only 0.05% of the population has died due to COVID-19, this does not mean that we have not suffered great consequence and collateral damage. Our border has been closed since the 14th of March, and the reopening is not expected until the 1st of July. And the pillar of the Spanish economy is tourism. And in the last 3 months, our economy is more than ruined. And experts believe that it will be almost impossible to recover from this crisis, and we probably will resort to be rescued by the European Union, which is unlikely that they will actually rescue us. And the decisions that has been made by our government has been radical and have brought fatal consequences. Spain was already in economic and social crisis before this pandemic occurred. And the COVID-19 has only accelerated the inevitable, only causing worse damage, generating such social hysteria that this disease has broken the economic system. One part of the population is so terrified that they no longer consume, and these people focus only on food supply. But it's more worse the fear of uncertainty of the country's future, because it's what politicians call now the new normality. The current coalition government has been taking advantage of this tragic situation to implement a new governmental regime in a disguised way. And as the majority of the population is ignorant of their rights, people are not aware of this issue. Spanish society is very polarized, and it's a divided society, both in favor and against its government. And at the same time, the independent parties have taken advantage of the state alarm to negotiate the rupture of the country. On the other hand, the extreme right is fomenting now protests on the streets against the government, which is our government is a coalition of a socialist party with a communist party. And all this movement and social agitation is just terrorizing more the Spanish population. Therefore, the country is facing a historical crisis, both economically and socially, and people do not trust the government that they know how to manage this pandemic, but neither trust the media, because it's all full of sensationalism. And cases are increasing daily, the numbers are changing every day, and a further relapse of the virus is expected. So people is locked up in their houses without income, no money, and just fear. And the consequences is that people can no longer cover their basic needs. And a great number of families are now vulnerable to poverty. This puts the health of the individual at risk. Poverty, you can no longer take care of yourself. So hence we will be even more fragile to relapses of the disease, or what is worse to come. So That's basically the Spanish report.
Thank you, Andrea Wen, for your valuable experiences sharing with us and your suggestions. Next, we go to international journalist again, Vincent Lin, and columnist. Please unmute, please.
Yeah.
Yes,
Good,
we can.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome His Excellency Deputy Prime Minister of Nepal, all colleagues and friends. Thank you for having me on today. Wishing you all you're well and staying safe and healthy. Yeah, my name is Vincent Lin. I'm also the founder of We Can Save Children. My primary focus of journalism and working with refugee children in the Middle East and in East Africa, primarily in Uganda. So I'd like to focus on that and talk about what's happening on the ground since obviously the advent of COVID-19. I've been speaking a lot with the director of UNRWA, which is the United Nations Relief Work Agency in Beirut, in Lebanon. In Lebanon, just to tell you, it has 12 refugee camps, of which there are about 500,000 refugees, mostly Palestinian and Syrian, some from Iraq as well.
Wow.
And I've spent a lot of time throughout Lebanon and Syria. Actually, was supposed to be there right now. But the situation there is what's happening is that where most of the world is in a lockdown, the refugee camps are suffering interminably because they are been caught already in a lockdown, but it's kind of a lockdown with inside a lockdown. So there has been a strain, obviously, of them getting basic food and clean water. So we're having not the COVID crisis, that is not, the deaths have been relatively low, but the problem is now we're having famine and of course disease, and famine is causing it's a dire catastrophe. Having spoken with the director of UNRWA in Beirut, and of course the recent cutoff of funding from the United States, which was one of the biggest funders since in the last 70 years. And of course, Trump's decision to cut the funding, which is more than $400 million per year. So they have been trying to get funding from other countries like the Eurozone, other Middle Eastern countries such as Qatar and Bahrain. But since COVID, there has been no funding coming in at all. So the situation is extremely, one can only imagine the catastrophe that is going to happen in the next months and obviously into 2021. The situation in Uganda, I actually aid 4 actually orphanages of about 1,500 children. And these are orphans that have been, they might have just one parent or no parents. Many of them are from Uganda, also from Rwanda and neighboring South Sudan. Their situation is even more dire than Lebanon and Syria because not only are they relying on food and aid from local community-based organizations, their lockdowns now have been going on for more than 60 days. And from what I understand, I speak with them on a daily basis, they are still under lockdown and there's no food source coming in at all. So there has been situations, and I'm receiving awful video and photos of parents, single parents, mothers hanging themselves, fathers hanging themselves because they are unable to get food for their children. I've aided them with scholastic supplies, medical supplies, obviously clothing and so forth. But, people have asked me, is there any way to send it? Well, of course, since COVID-19, I couldn't even get on a plane right now myself and bring it, which is what I ordinarily do. So yeah, everybody's hands are kind of tied at the moment. And there are children there, especially the young ones who are not strong enough, dying of all sorts of, from dysentery, from malaria, from typhoid. And so, yeah, the COVID-19 pandemic that obviously is still rampant and continually spreading in areas around the world. It's causing the refugee crisis, the orphanages throughout Africa, refugee crisis throughout Lebanon and Syria and Palestine. Yeah, it's a catastrophe, and I really, it's pretty terrifying, and I really, I can't even, I can say prayers, but certainly prayers are not enough, because this COVID-19 has caused another crisis beyond the actual pandemic itself. So yeah, that's.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vincent Lin, for your sharing your views and experiences. Thank you. We'll get back to you again in Q&A session if there is some questions. Yeah. Next, I'd love to invite Chief Editor of the Indian Panorama, Indrajit Saluja. Indrajit Saluja, Chief Editor of the Indian Panorama, Indrajit Saluja. I see his name, but can you unmute, please? Indrajit Saluja. Okay, we'll come back to you. Next, our young journalist from Nepal, based in New York, Anuj Thapa from the street.
Thank you, Somnath, for providing me this platform to share my views. And for all the audience who is watching us right now, I'm Anuj Thapa. I'm originally from Nepal, and I had a media background in Nepal. I used to work for a television called News 24 Television for more than 5 years. I came here in 2014. Now I'm working at the financial media called The Street, where I'm covering how this COVID-19 is impacting the US economy and global economy. Before I jump into coronavirus, I just want to stress the point, which has already been mentioned by our previous journalists, but I just want to stress it here on this platform is, right now, this has been one of the most challenging times for journalism, be it anywhere, be it in America right now, be it in India, be it in Nepal. Just wanted to point out that in US right now, the president of the United States is berating journalists on the public platform, which is creating some kind of a chaos. And the funny thing is, which I am seeing it as a journalist, is like people try to imitate whatever powerful nations do, and this is exactly being replicated to nations like India and Nepal. For example, like Mr. Trump is, calling out journalists on press conference, calling out names. And now what's happening is, like the country like Nepal, the current Prime Minister of Nepal, Mr. K.P. Sharma Oli, is also like hostile to journalists, and he's often seeing, saying things about Nepal's mainstream journalism, saying, okay, journalism is not on its par, stuff like that, and which is kind of imitating what Trump is talking about India. Even we have seen so many instances where the prominent media journalists who are some kind of, aggressive towards what's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is doing, they have been stripped off from they have been forced to resign. I want to just point out Mr. Punne Prashin Bajpai, who is a really prominent, honest journalist in India, has been forced to resign 2 years ago because he was too critical of the current Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi. So what I'm trying to say is, this it has been a normal for every one of us, every journalist of us to call our publicity just because we are doing our job. So I just wanted to point out here on this platform.
Sorry to interrupt you. Please include Pakistani journalism. Same thing happening.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, okay. For that, I don't want to talk more on Pakistan. I would prefer you to talk more on Pakistan. I'm close to India. That's why I know what's happening in India right now. But I'm sure, like I know that the situation of in Pakistan is not good as well. But still, I don't want to comment on Pakistan right now. So besides that, talking about our topic, everything has been almost covered by all our distinguished journalists. But I just want to point out the pandemic of fake news that has been ravaging the minds of public right now. Because what I'm seeing as a young journalist is like people don't understand the difference between the post on social media and journalism, which is really scary for us. Because when I go out on reporting, when I meet people, they often tell me that, have you seen a social media post about this people saying this thing on Facebook? And I always tell them, like, what was that all about? He or she is saying that there's going to be a looting tomorrow in Jackson Heights. Jackson Heights is a small community in Queens. And I was like, okay, where did you see that? And he or she say, okay, somebody has posted it on Facebook. Now the thing is, like, how can you believe whatever is posting on Facebook? He says, no, he or she posted on Facebook, so I believe that. So now that is a really challenging task for journalists like us to make people aware that whatever is being posted on social media is not journalism. And sometimes as a journalist, I feel pity for myself, because in that regards, I feel pity because I think, like, as a journalist, I think I failed to do my duty as a journalist to aware people about what is journalism and what is social media. So fake news is really eroding the credibility of journalism, because people are not aware about what is journalism and what is social media. So I think it's high time, like journalists like us, senior journalists in this panelist, young journalists in this panelist, start awareing people about the impact of fake news and how we can control fake news. And we can always partner with so many celebrities, because celebrities, to stop spread of fake news. Because one of the with my research, one of the ways how fake news are spread is when prominent people start sharing those fake news on their public platform. This is one of the key factors how Facebook fake news are said. And I've seen so many like prominent Nepali social activists sharing fake news on their social platform, which is really, which really, how do I put it in a good way, which really makes me sad. And sometimes it's really hard to call out those prominent people on social media saying, oh, hey, you are sharing fake news. But most of the times, why I DM them and tell them, you are sharing fake news, please put it down. And thankfully, whoever I have reached out have pulled down those fake news. So I think this is high time we as a journalist, start pulling our socks up, so that people are aware about the difference between fake news and difference between the journalism and fake news. That's it, Somnath. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Anustapa, the young journalist from Nepal. He is a correspondent in the street that based in New York, right? Yes. So next, I would like to introduce Editor-in-Chief, Wall Street News Agency, Dr. Leon King. Just follow the timetable of 5 minutes, please. Unmute.
Thank you, Somnath, for giving this opportunity again. My blessing to Honorable Sajita Kerala, Chairwoman of GPK Foundation. Fantastic global platform that you're giving the world to deliver message. So last week I mentioned that the medical fields are at the forefront of this coronavirus pandemic. But in truth, journalists are at the forefront, because every medical doctor is loved and cherished and worshipped. But you poor journalists, including me, are attacked and abused for telling the truth. because we do not confront with the right side. So in truth, you journalists are the true hero, okay? So the medical doctors, yes, they are heroes, and rightfully they are praised. But regrettably, you journalists, some of you, as one of the other members said, have put your life on the line for little pay. I mean, you got paid probably 0.25% of what the medical doctors are doing, and you are getting abused, verbally, physically attacked. And I commend you for your bravery, for your courage to front on that and continue to tell the truth. Okay, so as a journalist, but also I am a physicist, so I rely on data and fact. And that's why, to me, for us to get the truth out, as many of you journalists said, we should be responsible and ensure that we link to viable, provable reference, that we do not fall into this gossip trap, etc., that is fueling this fake news, which is confusing people more. So on all my posting, whether it's on media or on social media platform, I ensure that I link, I produce data and I produce viable link. And I beg all you journalists to continue that brave and ethical process to make sure that you report only the truth. Now, regrettably, there are bad journalism, just like there are bad people. And regrettably, I understand we're in a bad time, as Andrea mentioned, the economic impact on journalism. Well, journalism don't make much money, even in good time. So imagine what you're suffering right now. So you are cajoled, you are bribed, you are threatened to report a certain way. So I commend you on your bravery, on your suffering to go out there and continue to report the truth at your own life, at your own economic expense. And again, Vincent Lin is more than a journalist. I said, he flies everywhere. He does more walking than he does talking. He actually goes out there, as you mentioned, in Uganda. He's got 5 communities that's saving 1,500 children. So again, he's more than just a journalist. And that is the kind of bravery, the kind of dedication that I said to you. I personally put you, heroes, journalism, even above the medical doctors. They're doing their job. They're well paid in doing this, okay? You journalists are putting your life at the risk. You're working extremely hard. Most of the time, you're not being paid and you're being attacked. So in this COVID pandemic, I just want to keep my speech very, very short and focus on you, the journalist, me, the journalist, on your great work. And I commend you to continue that passion, that dedication to deliver the truth to the rest of humanity. You're absolutely critical to this fight that's coming. So God bless you all in all your endeavors, okay? And I'm proud to be standing side by side with you all. So God bless you all.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Next, we'll jump into the second topic: global effects and implication on post-COVID-19, development, economy, and diplomacy. I'd love to invite on this topic Professor Bijan Pant, PhD, advisor of Oxford Property and Human Development Initiative and Secretariat at MPP and at Oxford University, United Kingdom. Unmute, please, Dr. Bijan Pant from Oxford. Yeah, unmute.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ji.
You're welcome.
A pleasure to be here in virtual world. I've been feeling like, thank you for GPK, Girja Prasad Koirala Foundation, to organize this virtual forum. And I'm feeling like I've been in the different nest, that Somnathji dragging me in the different nest where all the brilliant journalists been talking about how the media is working in the difficult time. And I have a feeling about journalism a bit, but I'm not in the same nest. Well, this is very interesting because a few days back, Somnathji wanted to talk to me about these issues. And I felt like maybe this is the time. The new discourse has been in around that, post-COVID world, what will be like, I mean, can we walk in the same path, or will create a new one, or will be in the juncture of middle of nowhere? So I'm sure will be walk forward, or will be go away from this, pandemic situation after some times. But again, this is a very uncertain time in economy, especially, and also the diplomacy. For me, particularly, like economy and diplomacy should go hand to hand, which is going so far, and what will happen in the next. For this, you need to look at this, the coronavirus situation itself first. If the coronavirus, I like pretty much what, the journalist from India, I'm sorry, forget his name, which is, I can't see in the screen either. But if the coronavirus was not been affected in the so-called first world, or it should be, or it was in the first in the third world, and it should not be like this much in the media, or the pandemic, or other way around, But the point is, because coronavirus hit in the center of economy, as you can say, West and America. And as far as China, of course, is the growing economy, where is also the huge effect in the beginning, early days. Now, see, the economy in future, as we are talking about the discourse of economy and diplomacy, the future of economy, I'm sure it will not be like it was before. Here in UK, we are talking about the economy in UK. It's just like a Black Death of 300 years before. The economy arrow been in the down, not in the flat. It's completely in down, decline, just like a 300 years before the Black Death scenario. And same in US, like a US, just little before the pandemic, the Trump administration was telling us.
Hello, Somo. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you, Indrajit Ji, but now I'm talking. Can you hear me? So I've been a bit distracted. So the situation is a bit different. And in little before the pandemic, the US in unemployment rate was, all-time low. That was 3%. I don't want to go how the Trump administration been doing today and responding to the media. That is the different discourse or debate. But as far as the unemployment ratio was on-time low, which was little less than 3% in the history. And then now the unemployment rate last month, as per the global Financial Times, it's a 40 lakh people been already unemployed. So trying to bring all those different picture from US, UK, and then China, and growing economy like India, and the BRICS countries, Russia, and then of South Africa and Brazil, that all brings together. You can have a look. The next phase of the economy will not be like a globalized economy. It will be like a centralized economy in their one country first. Put their country in priority, put their country in first. So that means the production companies now, they used to be moving around the world where they got the cheap labor. Now they are coming back home slowly and gradually. Just like after the Brexit, most of the British brand, they came back home. They tried to grow their economy, produce their one factory, and produce their one market, rather than to support, or knowingly, unknowingly, directly, indirectly, they are supporting the economy in the rest of the world as well. If the Nike company, they move to China, they will supporting in China as well. Look at the company like a Citizen, the biggest Japanese watchmaker company. They pull out from China. And then after the Microsoft, US biggest company in China, they pull out as well. So that is always showing some example or some symptom that the economy is coming back. Well, you can argue the next phase or next era of the economy, they might be particularly focused in Asia. It's still the Asian market is much better for rest of the world, particularly Western America, because of the cheap labor again, because some of the factories, they moved from China to Vietnam, moved from China to Thailand. That shows the Asian market or Asian economy could be the potential market or economy, next economy. But again, it's very difficult to say in this juncture that I already said, we are in huge debate or discourse where it will go. Let's go back to the diplomacy. The diplomacy, how you drag your interest to along with other interest. That is very important, And the diplomacy was a huge tool before to produce your market. Like for a Japanese company, I can tell you just one Japanese company called KDDI, which is the third largest telecom business in Japan. They are trying to get the business in Nepal. They were before in India, already launched their KDDI company in India, then after in Nepal, because they came through the diplomacy. They've been long association with Nepal, such a long time. They are investing in Nepal for a long time in a development sector. Now they are trying to get the return to invest their company or bring their company in the cheap labor, cheap area, and where they can get more surplus. So many such examples, we can see in the future discourse, we can bring those issues and then, how it goes, how it will be. And it is indeed a huge pandemic time, not only in the media sector, but most importantly in economy, where the center of the heart that we've been moving around. I think that's what we have to focus. Even the media, supposed to focus these issues. What, where, and how, and what will be the next, and that is the life. As journal, Young from the state. Yes. Leong Yung said, like a journalist also working without getting paid. So, this is the prime sector that we supposed to or should be hit. That's what I've been thinking. But now again, we can't, it's very difficult to, predict the future, how and where it will be. But as we can see some of the symptoms and the, prediction that probably gonna hit on that way. That's what I can say for now.
Excellent.
Again, you are.
Your audio is muted, Somnath.
Somnathji, unmute your.
Yeah, I got it. So Indrajit Saluja, are you back? Before we go to further, this is Indrajit Saluja. Are you back? I just got the message that you said I'm back. Please, Indrajit Saluja. So let's give him a last try again. Next, I would love to invite. Let's go for some law and order issues that's going on in the time of COVID, and what will happen in the future in the coming days. Love to invite Lara Gregory, attorney and counselor at law. Very short, 4 or 5 minutes, please. Lara Gregory.
Thank you so much, Somnath, for that introduction. And I wanted to commend all the previous speakers, particularly the journalists who have been continuing in their endeavor to report verifiable facts as truth. We cannot overemphasize its importance, particularly now that most countries, if not all countries, are facing the pandemic. And at a time when the United States is not only facing the pandemic, but is actually experiencing racial pain. We all know that when we talk about press freedom, we cannot not talk about the case of New York Times, the case of the United States versus New York Times. In that particular case on press freedom, Justice Black said that press freedom is for the governed. It is not for the government. The duty of the press is to report on facts so that the secrets of the government is laid bare to the population. Now, having said that, as individuals, how can we help press freedom? There are only three important points. First, we need to protect and uphold press freedom, because without the dedication and commitment of reporting truth as facts, we would not be discussing human rights violations in specific countries like the Philippines. If not for journalists that reported, like Maria Ressa and Carlos Conde, the detention of Senator Lilia de Lima would not have been an objective reality. And as a result, it would not have been possible to have a United States Senate resolution condemning her detention. Second, we need to continue to support organizations that actively work for human rights and denounce political repression. Because without the continued loud protests and assiduous engagement, change will not happen. If not for reporters who constantly report on facts, on truth as verifiable facts, and if not for continued protests, there would not be change. And even the International Criminal Court would not have started investigations of human rights abuses. Finally, as individuals, we need to personally walk the talk. We need to be personally practicing upholding human rights in our practice. We should not be discriminating based on color, creed, faith, or culture. I know that it seems like a difficult time for everyone, regardless of where country you are at. And it is easy to lose focus at a time like this. And yet, when our minds are set with clarity and our hearts are open with kindness, we can see that regardless of the differences in opinion, in language, culture, race, and faith, all of us share the vision of a flourishing city, a healthy population, and a shared commitment to help and serve the grieving, the fatherless, the immigrant, and the elderly. Namaste, everyone, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Lara, attorney at law, for your valuable information and advices. Next, Soma Sahid, attorney at law.
Good morning, good evening, everyone around the world. Firstly, Somnath Ji, thank you for arranging this.
You're welcome.
Thank you to all the journalists from around the world for sharing your perspectives on particular geographical area or issues you're covering and countries. I think it's so important to get perspectives from all over the world. And I rely on BBC News, NPR, and other international news organizations to get information. Sapna Ji, you asked us to cover or talk about the human rights issues as well as the global impact of the COVID-19. So the world is already tipping towards the very wealthy and very poor, and the middle class is just shrinking and crunching more and more. COVID-19 has starkly presented the horrific economic condition and human rights conditions that people who don't have enough access to wealth, information such as real, not fake news, access to health, access to food, access to clean water, and access to a hope from governments, reliable governments who are really working for people, but not for themselves, or particular sectors of their groups, whether it be corporate interest or particular governmental interest. So we're definitely facing a global impact, and how do we overcome this? And I've spoken in many Zoom and Skype meetings and events where I've said that we really need to start thinking and treating people regardless of color, gender, religion, or what part of the world they come from as one, not as because you practice this religion or you're from this country, you're not part of the global village. Because the environmental conditions affecting people who are not in the development countries, the impact of the global climate, the impact of hoarding resources by the 1% and pushing working class and children to poverty. UN predicted because of COVID-19, we'll have 500 million children in hunger and poverty. And how do we live with that? And how do we go on thinking when we might have a trillionaire by year 2026, Jeff Bezos. And during COVID-19 in the USA, top 5 companies, Walmart, Target, Amazon, and others have gained almost $436 billion in wealth. And while the lower classes, the struggling classes, the middle classes are struggling. So the inequities built into our global capitalistic system and is just moving from, and it's happening at the speed of light because of COVID-19. I think all the leaders around the world, people who are really genuinely interested in this issue, such as attorneys as myself and other speakers, journalists, and we have seen journalists under attack in the USA by our very government, where misinformation is coming out. We have other countries who are attacking our freedom of speech and media by trolling, by attacking our campaigns. So everything is together. And I think, one of the speakers, the Philippine journalist, she said that she blocks even her friends who are spreading wrong information or try to point it. In fact, personally, in the beginning of COVID-19, I had to defriend a friend who attacked me personally because I was raising an important issue that our president should not be speaking in a certain manner. And she instead thought that I was the one spreading misinformation and creating scare tactics. So our job is ongoing. Our job doesn't end because we didn't have any death from COVID-19 in New York yesterday. So our job doesn't end. The job continues. So please keep doing what you're doing. And my heart goes out to what Mr. Lin is doing and the children in Lebanon, Beirut, and Uganda, and also the Rohingyas in Bangladesh and all the people who are suffering because we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, sharing the resources of this world. Thank you, Somnathji.
Thank you so much, Syed, attorney at law, for your valuable advices, opinions, and information. Last call for Indrajit Saluja. So looks like today the final panelist is Miss Malini Saha. She is a social activist and human rights activist based in New York. Malini Saha. Unmute, please.
Yeah, thank you, Somnath ji, and thank you to Sajjada ji, our chairperson of Kerala the Foundation, for the great initiative that gives us global knowledge in these presidential times. As Sujata ji said, a challenge to us and an opportunity to start anew. And I think this I've seen in most of the Zooms that I've been on, that this is everyone's concern. What are we going to do during this time, and how do we restart our economy? How do we restart the world? And the sufferings of those who have very much been affected by it. I just love how Pujat compared COVID to AIDS. I think that was well said, and Lena spoke well on checking the source of information. I think this was great global knowledge for us to understand that we must check the source of information of what is truth and what is fake. I think one of my, I do acknowledge all the hard work every journalist is doing and putting his life out on the line of duty. Most officers, elected officials, health workers, essential workers, and everyone. I mean, we see it 24 hours. Sometimes we don't sleep because, you know, you're aware of what your surrounding is. One of my main concerns have been, as being a teacher also, is our youths, our children who are being affected by it and whom we should be there for, physically and mentally. And I've spoken about this too, that this concerns me, that they should feel hope of the future, and they should feel that there is great hope, and we must present them with a good environment. I think opening the economy and the issues and the wellness of helping those who suffer means a lot to me also. And I've been working on those issues of how to help those who are going through certain things at this moment. And it's been an honor to speak and hear everyone. And thank you.
You need to unmute, Somnath. Unmute.
Hello.
Great service to the community, Malini ji. She is actively working on the domestic violence issues in South Asian community. We look forward working with you. Thanks.
Mr. Somnath. Mr. Somnath.
I would love to now. Indrajit Saluja is here. Please give you 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you so much. But I have been here since the beginning of the panel discussion. I don't know why. I moved from, I just changed from my laptop to this phone to reach you. Thank you so much. Finally, I made it. Let me tell you, I have heard every single distinguished panelist today, from the First Lady to Prabjot to Siddiqui to Leonie to Andrea Ween to Vincent to Arutapa to Leong Ying to Dr. Pant to Malini Shah, everybody. And everybody has spoken so well, covering the various aspects of life of journalists, what the journalists have to do in the pandemic situation, and what they have done. I was particularly, impressed by Mr. Siddiqui's very, very lucid description of what he did. I congratulate him for having taken the courage of going to Elmhurst Hospital and going near the dead body, and also highlighting that how this administration had done great disrespect, rather desecration of the human body, which is the epitome of God's creation. It was a very sad incident, but thank you, Siddiqui, for having taken all that trouble of going into the battleground and covering when people, even the nearest relatives, will not go near those people who were suffering from coronavirus. And as you rightly pointed out, your heart was filled with milk of human kindness, and you went around distributing food also to the needy. Let me tell you, sir, the Sikh community, my community, the world over, has been giving food to people in need of food around the clock, this, with no regard for the faith or the caste or the region, anything. So it's one good thing that we all did. But beyond this, my friend Siddiqui, journalists have a very different task altogether. This is something that anybody could do. The community leaders would do, the temples would do, the mosque will do, the church will do, the Gurudwara will do. Now, I was just thinking, I must, before I forget, let me congratulate Somnath ji for having organized this wonderful webinar.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very, very timely, very timely. And Malini, if you are listening to me, I owe you gratitude for having recommended me to Mr. Ghimire, who might have forgotten me because we didn't talk for a long time. I remember Mr. Ghimire as one of the most outstanding personalities in our community. So having said that, let me just come to one particular, because I want to focus myself on the subject. I don't want to talk about what I did, or I don't want to sound a leftist or a rightist, So here I am. Here is my take in just about 2-3 minutes. Now, I wonder, where this world will be without the journalists. I believe the world will be a den of anarchy dominated by autocrats and dictators if there were no honest journalists. And when I say that, I would also like to say that the world of journalism has two types of journalists. One, that are pro-establishment. They are not the real journalists. They are the PR guys, public relations guys. Those who would pick up the government, the press releases from government agencies and publish them or read them out and discuss them on the television screens. They are not the journalists in my eye. The journalists are those who understand human being is above every other consideration in the world. I really felt very unhappy when the president of America was trying to put dollar value to human life. Come on, man, you don't do it. Economy you can rebuild, but you cannot recreate a dead person. It is the people for whom you are there. It is the people who should be the subject of all concern of human activity. Having said that, I'm going to elaborate on one or two things. That is, one is, there is a tendency of government across the world to disregard the essential human concerns. And I would just give you two examples. I go to India, the country I come from. Millions of people, seasonal workers, migrant workers, they were left to their fate by the government of India, who left the cities, metropolitan cities, to get back to their villages. Because of the lockdown, they were out of job. Because of the lockdown, they were not getting the wages. They were not getting food. So they were going to die in any case, either because of starvation or because of COVID. So they chose to go back. You understand so well, Nepal and Bihar border areas, UP. I mean, imagine the misery of those people. I really, sitting here, I have been crying. What is the government done for them? And here is our media, the servile media in India, just, praising the government for the initiatives that they have taken and not reporting the fact that so many lives were lost. This is something, which journalists must always keep in mind, whatever the part of the world. The first duty of a journalist is to see to it that the human being is the subject of their story. The human being is the subject of their concern. And on that note, Somnath ji, I would once again congratulate you. There would be, I think, many more occasions when we would like to discuss all these things at length, in detail, because there is so much happening and so much to talk about. One thing I would add, social media is now come to our aid. You see, we would never have known of the fate of George Floyd, but for the lady who made the video, and the atrocity of the police brutality came to be known. And that is where the social media is playing a role. Of course, sometimes it spreads rumors, but we have to, distinguish between the real substance and the refuse. So take up what is good, take up what is real, and go forward with that. And thank you so much for having me. And everybody have a wonderful time. Stay safe, stay blessed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Manoj Salujaji, for your sharing your ideas, opinions, experiences in this global forum. We have now 10 more minutes. I have 3 questions here that needs to be addressed. First question, I just received from Lava Timin Sena. I believe he's from Nepal, to one of the attorney at law. Let me ask Soma Sahid. In terms of law and order, how does a government should be policing pandemic?
Well, firstly, there are quite a few mistakes made within the USA in the beginning of the pandemic. We had information as early as December that an infection was occurring in China and people were dying and being hospitalized. We had a 90-day before it spread in the USA to take a federal guidelines that could be implemented by the states very widely. So there was a lack of leadership at the federal level, which did not surprise personally myself, but it was a really heartbreaking to see it. Then I live in New York. I know people who personally passed away from this disease. And even within New York, our state government and city government in New York City were not in sync to what to do. And they did not want to move too fast. Fortunately, we lost almost close to 30,000 people within New York City. And nationally, we're reaching close to 110,000. And globally, almost 500,000. So we are in control now because of what the social distancing has been implemented. We didn't have masks. So government should be thinking about this, because there are three types of warfares that's been discussed for the last 20 years by scientists. Is biological warfares, nuclear warfares, and this infectious disease. So it was so unfortunate and it's so sad that our government was not ready. But what is also unfortunate now that the COVID-19 is increasing in Bangladesh, India, Africa, and in South Americas and the Caribbean and the Middle East. While the USA, European countries, Australia, New Zealand, Canada are seeing a decrease, it's increasing in other countries that are highly densely populated, who do not have enough doctors or medications or clean water. And where Mr. Vincent Lin talked about refugees and camps, they're in danger if it spreads there. So, you know, the governments who are in a position to do something, and the governments of these countries really, really should take this seriously, because they have enough information to learn from countries like China, Italy, Spain, USA, and UK, what to do and not to do, and take those precautions. And opening up businesses and governments because people are restless, or opening up governments. I'll just give you one example. What happened in Bangladesh is that in the beginning, they're doing very well. Then the garment industries decided to open the garment. But when the people who left Dhaka and went to their villages, when they came back on their feet, they came back on cars. When they came back, there were no jobs. So these people who are stuck in Dhaka, they're traveling, so they were spreading already. So leadership like that needs to be really rethought and repurposed. And then people, governments and the industry leaders really need to think from humanitarian perspective as well as from economic perspective, because you have to put people before profits and health before profits. And we haven't seen that.
Thank you so much, Saeedji, for your.
I just want to add. I just want to add one.
So I have another questions. Yes, Mobiji, go ahead.
I just want to add one more question. The thinkers and the journalists should also look for what happened in the United States, because if see the numbers, the most were effective, or their disease is from a minority and poor areas. So there is something to look at.
All right, thank you. So again, I have a question from Nepal. Please don't mention my name. So question goes to Bharati Silwal Giri, the gender specialist. Right now, Nepal is facing the COVID crisis, increasing the numbers day by day. And on top of that, we have a discrimination issues, as we all know, going on in Rukum incident. So how do you relate these two incidents, and what is your suggestions for the government of Nepal? Unmute, please.
Thank you to whoever that was for this very important question. As we all know, discrimination in Nepal persists on the basis of gender, class, caste, ethnic origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, and religion. Now, what is happening here in Nepal is actually the government is ill prepared, as I would suspect like any other country in the world, but particularly in Nepal, the government has imposed the lockdown, which has brought about some grave consequences, particularly on the poor, the wage workers, and particularly the women, because their unpaid work, which they do in the house, and the care work, which upholds the economy, has almost tripled. And they are facing violence, and they have to tolerate domestic violence because NGOs have shut down owing to their weak capacity to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. And the government, what it has done is it has imposed a lockdown. It is providing relief measures on a blanket basis. So it is not really looking at those populations which are the most impacted. And on top of that, it is asking for documents when people go to receive, receive these relief packages, they are asked to provide identity cards. Now, almost 1.6 million people in Nepal do not have citizenship cards because of the policy of the government, which is basically targeted at, because of its fear that India might overtake Nepal. And I don't know what that fear is based on. It is purely psychological. So all of these poor populations, the marginalized, those and the minorities are exempted from even these relief measures, right? That is one. Now, as to your second question on what recently happened in Nepal, the murder and the killings of those belonging to the lower castes, which is again upheld by our religion, by the Hindu religion, which considers Dalits as untouchables, including women when they're menstruating, mind you, they become untouchables. And without menstruating, how will the next generation be produced or generated? And this is all again based on the patriarchal and feudalistic values and norms. So what has happened is the government, which is again very much Brahmin, all the leaders of the political parties belong to the higher castes. They have no understanding what it means to be excluded, what it means to be marginalized. And therefore, although there is a very strong law on against discrimination, against caste discrimination, our religious, cultural, and social norms, exempt caste discrimination. And therefore, discrimination based on caste, based on gender, based on minorities continue unabated. My message to the government is that instead of consolidating its power and pelf, even at this time of Corona, even at this time of the COVID-19 pandemic, and living in an ivory tower, should actually listen to the voices of the people. And that is where the role of the media and the role of the human rights defenders come in. Because very often the role of journalists and the role of the human rights defenders overlap. And also indigenous groups, the Dalits, those fighting for, or those belonging to interest groups, all their roles and functions overlap. And therefore, it is so important that there is solidarity among us, among the women particularly. And even when I talk of women, it is not just any women, but those women who are gender sensitive and bold enough. They don't have to be legislators, they don't have to be leaders, but common, ordinary women, ordinary men who call themselves feminists, who fight for the underdog, have to be united and let the government know that it is not doing the right thing by not preparing for the COVID-19 pandemic and by not looking after the interests of the most poor, of the most marginalized, because what is happening now, as elsewhere in the world, gender inequality is becoming more entrenched.
Thank you. Thank you for your advices, your sharing your views on this question. And I have two more questions to end up this forum today. Next question goes to Anu Thapa by T. Kharka. You set an example in the US among the Nepali journalists with your struggles that you overcame in the critical situation that we all face in the US lifestyle. How do you manage to overcome this critical and all the obstacles to be a role model in Nepali journalists in the US?
Thank you, Somnath, for this. By the way, who's the question?
T. Kharka.
Thank you, Mr. T. Kharka, for asking this question. I don't know if I'm a role model for Nepali journalists in Nepal because I don't consider that myself.
He has asked in the US, not in Nepal.
Oh, in the US. So yeah,
Yeah.
even though in the US, I'm not a role. I don't think myself as a role model. I just love storytelling, and this is the reason why I continued my passion of storytelling in America. And fortunately, I've been able to do and make a living at the same time. And considering about the crisis that's going on right now, like I was mentioning in the beginning, it's really a challenging time for a journalist uh, to impart right information, do all the impart right information with doing ethical journalism in this current scenario, because like I was mentioning earlier, like people don't understand the difference between social media and journalism, so which is really a big challenge for us. And besides that, as a journalist, you know what we can do, because I work for a financial news media, and sometimes there are so many issues where I can't cover because I am into financial journalism, but there are so many ways where I can cover issues. For example, the biggest issues right now that's happening in America is hashtag Black Lives Matter. So this might this issue might not be covered by my institution, but I can always take an angle of economic impact that's happening in this community. But besides that, if I have to find a human angle on this story, I can always use the platform like I want to mention my podcast at the end of the day, which I have been hosting and producing with my wife. So I can use that platform to impart factual information. And this is what I've been doing. And since the pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic hit the US, me and my wife, we have been producing like the information, the factual information surrounding coronavirus, the positive information surrounding coronavirus, which is really which has been really helpful to public, especially in America, because like I was mentioning earlier, fake media has really engrossed the cloud of the social media. So as a journalist, it's my duty to give factual information. So I have been using my podcast as a platform to try my best to give factual information, to write information, because this during this time the information is so much that people get lost about which is the right information, which is the wrong information. It's high time for us to impart right information, and I'm using this platform especially during this crisis. And there's so many ways journalists from anywhere in the world, be it in Philippines, be it in India, if you are a good journalist, if you follow ethics and if you follow ethical norms and values, you can always do your job regardless wherever you are.
Yeah, he just again text me. Just I'm mentioning you the journey of journalism that you had struggled during your US time.
Okay, my bad. So I wasn't confused. I was not clear about the question. So regarding my journey of journalism in America, yeah, I'll try to make as brief as possible, respecting everyone's time. I was a journalist in Nepal for more than 7 and 8 years, and I've been on TV as a news anchor. And then I came to America to be a journalist because that's the only thing I knew. Storytelling. It was really hard for me as a journalist, as an immigrant journalist, to pursue the passion I always wanted, because English is not my first language, and B, I am in New York City, and New York City is the media hub where there's a cutthroat competition, and to survive in this cutthroat competition, being as an immigrant journalist was really hard. But to hold my skills and to be well equipped, I went to a journalism school, which is CUNY Graduate School of Journalism, from where I graduated in 2017. Then I started applying to a bunch of media houses like New York Daily News, Metropolis Magazine, SupChina. This is how I honed myself. This is how I got my feet in the American media. And finally, in 2018, I got this job at the street.com as a multimedia journalist, as a video producer. So it was really hard to be very honest with you. But I think if you have a passion and if you have a perseverance, they can always make it out, whether you are in America, UK, China, wherever you are. Because but the bottom line is you need to pursue, and it's really hard to be a journalist, especially an immigrant journalist in a new country.
Now, thank you, Nanu Thapaju. And the last question goes to our Honorable Sujata Koirala, Chairperson, and former Deputy Prime Minister and former Foreign Minister of Nepal. What is your suggestions? These questions by, let me see the name. Where did it go again? S. Lama, what is your suggestion for the government of Nepal? Daily, the number of COVID patients are going up and up, and what would be done to control this? And how would you see the Nepalese NRN bringing back to Nepal at this increasing number of COVID viruses?
Yeah, we are giving pressure to government to bring all the people who want, Nepali people who wants to come back to Nepal, to bring them back and organize their staying also. Usually they are kept in the tent and they are infected by each other. Even those who are healthy are infected by the others, those who are infected. Because they are kept, hundreds of people are kept in one room or one tent. So there should be, there must be an arrangement for their staying. Hotels are empty, they can be sent to the hotels. Government can pay to the hotel can also run, make some money, and the workers, they will get their salary, which will be very helpful. And right now it is really very sad to see people coming back from India. So many Nepalese, they are stranded on the border side. There is nobody to look after them, no parties who are working for them. You can see them in television, you can see how they are suffering. They cannot come, there is no taxi, there is no vehicles, no buses, nothing, no transportation to send them to their home. So government must keep an eye on this. And one thing I'm very surprised, I always think about, is for last, let's say 3 months, we are locked down. We are totally locked inside our house. Nobody can go out. And it is a very difficult situation. And usually what happens, what I have seen in other countries, when they stay in lockdown, the number of infected people decreases. But in Nepal, it is increasing. Because this is not the solution to just put everybody inside the house and lock them. They have to have other arrangements, and the modality of fighting the virus has to be changed by the government, and government must be very serious about it. And another thing I feel really, Alini ji, Alini Shah ji, she mentioned about children. I really appreciate that. I am also always thinking about the children and the next generation, who are really suffering. Children can't go to their school. What life they are going to have after COVID, after the crisis? After what are they going to have? What kind of a life they are going to have? How are they going to grow up with this atmosphere? They can't play with their friends. They have to keep distance even if they go to school. In Nepal, there is no school. Everything is locked. For 3 months, little children are at home. They have no friends. They can't go out. They can't do their homework. They have to only I think about 30% of children, those who have access to online service or internet access. The others in the villages, if you see, there is no internet services. They cannot do homework. They cannot meet their teacher. They can meet their friends. I mean, this is absolutely a horrible time we are going through. So we have to really also think about that, be more sensitive on that. And another part from the pandemic today, the humanity is facing an existential threat that comes from climate change. It is a serious issue, and we, whether in least developed or developing or developed countries, are confronting this challenge. This calls for even great solidarity, unity, and collaboration. So journalists and intellectuals have a great role in sensitizing the world about the impending dangers from this crisis. So journalists can play a very big role. In Nepal, I must tell you, I think after 35 years, we can see the Himalayan ranges. So nice it looks. It is all clean, the positive side. There is no pollution. There is no, streets are all empty, clean. You know, it all, no dust. It used to be full of dust. You could hardly go out for a walk. It is really looked so beautiful. And we should really think about the next generation, their health and how think more about the climate change and ecology, how to save our ecology. And so the journalists can play a very big role on that. Thank you. Thank you so much, Somnathji.
Thank you.
Thank you all
Excellent.
of you.
Thank
Who
you so
gave
much for
time.
all valuable time on this.
Valuable time and so much to learn from
Learn a
each
lot.
other.
Everybody
It's
can learn a
excellent.
lot. We have the researchers and human rights defenders, top journalists. Thank you so much. Appreciate it, all of you. Stay
Thank you
safe.
so much.
Stay
Thank
healthy.
you. Everyone spoke so well.
Thank you, Amy. Thanks a lot. Really.
We'll see you
Thank
soon.
you, everybody, and
Thank
I
keep
always
well.
said
Thank you all.
Malini.
God bless
Take
you.
a
You all.
photo.
You're
Somnath,
Thank
talking
you.
about children. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes, I care about
Thank you.
children.
Thank you, everybody. Stay safe
Somnath, can
and
you
blessed.
take a group
Bye-bye.
photo?
Thank you, Singh. Thank you very
Yes,
much.
okay, group photo, okay. Wait, group photo, all right. All right.
A group photo, how?
Yeah, I'm taking, I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Somu, send
Yes.
it to, email it to me for my newspaper.
I will
Oh,
send
yes.
everyone. I have all the information.
I want to meet you. So
Thank you very much.
Smile, smile. Say cheers. All right.
Nice.
All right, that's it. Thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Hi,
Bye.
Malini.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Well.
Thank you. Nice meeting you all.
Nice meeting you
Sure.
all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.